I'm a race widow. My husband died after a head-on collision in one of the biggest races in the world, Baja 1000, which takes place in Mexico, just over the border from San Diego. In 2016, Score International, who owns the race, it's also sponsored by BF Goodrich, changed the race course to bilateral traffic, meaning trophy trucks, buggies, cars, and bikes were coming straight at each other. My husband's accident happened at 4 in the morning in the middle of the desert in Mexico. There was no contingency plan in place for the type of accident to the magnitude of his. The crash occurred at the main pit area, the driver change area. There were many that were there that witnessed the crash and offered assistance, thankfully. Mark's left leg was mostly ripped off on impact. He had 47 broken bones. He was screaming for help, all while bleeding out. There was many that were there that used belts and anything they could find to use as makeshift tourniquets until the ambulance arrived. One ambulance arrived and said both drivers. There was one backboard, one neck brace, one gurney. All of the supplies were used for the other driver that hit my husband, who was completely unconscious at this time. Team member demanded that the ambulance take my husband as well because there was no telling when another ambulance might be coming. This, I truly believed, saved his life. There were videos of him posting on YouTube by bystanders while they're extracting my husband of him screaming his head off. It was barbaric. All I could think of is what if our two girls saw these videos? I was listed on his emergency contact in case of an accident, yet no one from Scornell National or BF Goodrich ever contacted me to update me or let me know that there was even an accident. I found out about the accident live over race radio. I immediately felt ill. Without confirmation, I knew it was my husband. It was confirmed some 30 minutes later by one of his teammates that said, "Kill the live feed, Mama Bear is listening." I knew right then and there it was my husband. I knew it was bad. Mexico doesn't allow flights from dusk till dawn. It took 6 hours to get Mark to the Mexican Air Force Base for a live flight to San Diego. Immediately after the jet took off, a member of Score International's insurance, his name was Hal, approached me and handed me his card and said, "They're taking your husband to San Diego. He's going to be fine. Give me a shout out on Facebook so all the racers know I took great care of you." I was seething because great care was no medical attention for my husband. For 9 hours it took to get him to a U.S. hospital. 47 broken bones. His left leg ripped off, mostly. Broken neck, broken back, both arms, both legs, both wrists. You name it. He was with it. He was talking. He was able to communicate. He was angry. He was in so much pain. Why didn't anyone ever call me? Why was there no medical help for all of those hours? There were so many racers and their race crews out there. Every single person that was out there was at risk. And it was my husband that this happened to. It could have happened to anyone. Sorry. It's been a long time since this happened. It's taken me a long time to get the strength to be able to talk about this. Um, I was crossing the border in Tijuana when I got the phone call from my husband for the last time. He said, "Hey, Mama, are you cool without me having limbs?" I said, "What are you saying?" He said, "They have to move both arms and both legs for me to survive. Are you cool?" And I was in shock. from the accident. I could barely form a thought, let alone a sentence. To have this man call me to ask if it was okay to remove his limbs to survive, I left my body. It was hell I wouldn't wish on anybody. He said, "You have to say the words because I'm taking too many pain meds. And I can't make these decisions. You're next of kin and you have to." So I had to say, "You have the right to remove my husband's arms and legs for him to survive." I asked if they could wait for his surgery because I was only 20, 30 minutes away. And they said, "No, he'll be gone if we don't get him in for surgery right now." My older daughter, who was 12 at the time, and I got to the hospital. They'd already taken him in for surgery. He had four different surgeons working on him, a vascular surgeon, one for the amputation, um, tissue specialist, you name it. He had four different people, and they kept coming out saying, this part of his leg is gone. We need to take his amputation from a higher point. Um, his right leg was to the point where they said they're just going to sew it up and they'll amputate it in a couple of days because he was shooting too many blood clots at the time. All I could think of is my husband's an orb. How much is he going to weigh? How am I going to get him in and out of bed? How am I going to feed him? How will he ever hold our girls again? How is he going to use the bathroom? How am I going to do this? While he was in his many hours of surgery, I was doing all kinds of research on the computer about prosthetics and amputations and how to how to go about putting a prosthetic limb. I needed nubs, and each surgery was 4 to 6 surgeries to shape a nub, to shave the nub, to get a prosthetic fit. So I knew we were in for a long haul. When he woke up out of the surgery, he was mad he didn't get to finish his race. He wanted to know who hit him and how bad his truck was. That was when I knew my husband was okay. He was with it. His mind was great. He was joking, and I knew, the nurses and the doctors kept saying it's just broken bones. He'll be okay. He was there assuring me, don't worry, I got this. It'll be okay. Um, Day two, he was really good. He was, you know, assuring me he was going to be fine. Um, all of his teammates finished the race. They came across and they said, "Hey, we're going to take the truck back." And he was telling them how to fix it, what to do. I fell asleep on his gurney in recovery on the second night, and I was freezing cold. And I woke up in the morning and I looked at him, and he was restless. He was done. He just looked at me and he said, "We've been together 18 years and I've never seen you without lipstick or makeup. Will you please do me a favor and go get a shower, take a nap, and do your hair and your makeup and look pretty for me?" I said, "Do you want me to leave here?" He said, "Yeah, I want you to do this for me. Go look pretty and come back for me." I said, "Well, I'll be a couple of hours." It had been 5 days without sleep, except for a cat nap here and there. And I figured a shower and a nap would do me some good. So I left the hospital, went to a hotel nearby, and I screamed my head off in that shower. All I could think of is I have a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old at home. My husband owns a business. I own my business. I'm a world away in California, and we live in Florida. How am I going to do all of this? Our baby, who was 2, was very sick and had just finished her third surgery. And I'm her main caregiver. And now I have to be his main caregiver. So everything was going through my head. And I just said, okay, you can't think that far ahead. Just think an hour or two. So I decided it was time to get him cleaned up and go pick up some toiletries. So I grabbed a nail trimming kit and some razors and something good that, you know, aftershave and soap that smelled better than a hospital. And I got um, two sets, one for him and one for the other driver that was in the accident. I got back to the hospital, and as soon as I got there, my phone started ringing. It was his brother, and he said, "Hey, something's wrong. You've got to come here." So I ran into the ICU, and that's when they said, "You need to get her out of here. He's having a massive heart attack. She can't see this." I screamed. I laid on the floor, wailing, and my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, grabbed me and was rocking me and trying to reassure me that it was going to be okay. Um, we ran to the OR and got him into the coronary unit where they were going to do open heart surgery and anything life saving. Um, Somehow he got separated. I got separated from his family on the way back after they took him in for surgery. And I walked back through ICU. And that's when I saw his room with needles and paddles and blood. Um, it was an empty room with a bed and junk and garbage all over the floor that they used to try to save my husband. Um, Everything was in slow motion. As I walked around the corner towards the nurse's station, all the lights started blinking in the hospital, and they called code blue, heart cath lab code blue. I fell to the floor and just started screaming. My heart was gone, and I left my body. I knew with all my body and soul that was my husband. They took me into a room, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were holding me. I was wailing and screaming. I just had to get out of there, and I said, I can't do this. So, um, sorry. Um, I went to leave, and as I was walking down the hallway, I see his doctor with his white lab coat and about six other people with white lab coats behind him walking towards me. And he said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I need to talk to you about your husband. He had many injuries." And I said, "Well, I know what you want to say to me, but I cannot hear the words you want to say to me." I ran. I told him I could talk to his family. I couldn't do it. I ran to the waiting room where there was a bunch of people. The media was there and a bunch of people waiting word on both drivers. And I said, "I have to go. I can't hear." And I grabbed his helmet and our things that were there as much as I could put my hands. I ran down the hallway, went around the corner so I could get to the elevator to get out of that damn place just so I could grab a breath. And I hit a gurney in the hallway. And on that gurney was my husband dead, uncovered, with a 4-inch tube sticking out of his mouth. I threw everything I owned that was in my hands down, and I jumped on him and I beat the living crud out of him. I told him not to joke around anymore. I said, "Don't you do this to these girls," and I quit messing around. He was yellow and he was blue. He was dead. All I could think of is what if my girls saw their dad dead in the hallway? This is a renowned trauma center in California. in San Diego, and they leave him uncovered with no dignity, naked in a hallway. He was covered from his chest down with a sheet. His eyes were wide open, rolled behind his head, and he was yellow. That is the last memory I have. Excuse me. They were setting up a room so I could have some alone time with my husband to say goodbye. They apologized for me finding him that way. Again, there was no help from anyone, from SCORE International or from BF Goodrich that sponsored this race. There was no help. What do I do now? I got to ride home the next morning from San Diego, Palm Beach, Florida, where my little girls are waiting. It was Thanksgiving Day, and I had to go home to tell two little girls that their daddy was never coming home again. Only I didn't get that chance because my flight was delayed and my oldest could not find out on the internet that her daddy was dead. So my sisters and my brother and my mama, I had to sit these two girls down and tell them their mommy was on the way home, but their daddy was never coming home. How was I going to do this by myself? How was I